at Escapes to Books, and I'll try and link both of our kind of handles. I'm trying to get better at that. But I'm here today with author Laurisa Brandt, and she has 2 books out so far. And number 1, I'm currently reading right now is Birthright of Scars, Rising Birthright of Scars. And I'm loving it so far. But I'm going to have her introduce herself, kind of how she got started and who she is.
All right. I am originally from the Gulf Coast of Alabama, and I spent my summers as a teenager writing stories and spiral notebooks and things, and I was always a bookworm. And then by the age of 19, I tried self-publishing, and this right here is my 3rd book, but my debut under my married name. So I currently live in rural southeastern Pennsylvania, and I like to write sci-fi with dystopian vibes and fantasy. Those are my favorites. And I have an adorable African Timna Gray named Hercules that helps me with my writing.
Oh, cute. That's awesome. I love that. I had 3 books. I did not know that. That is really interesting. So you said you started at 19. So how old are you now?
I'm 31.
31. Okay, so it has been kind of a process. This is something you've been doing for quite a while. Oh, yeah. That's really cool. Have you felt like you've kind of like learned a lot with every book that you've published so far?
Absolutely. Each book is, 10 times better than the last one. We get really attached to the most recent. And I think it's because we see how far we've come with each book we do. The progress is just monumental from one to the next.
Yeah. Yeah. And things have probably changed so much. So like different platforms and stuff, like when you do the formatting, is there like a specific process? Has that gotten better for you?
Formatting of a book's interior?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. When I was 19, I really didn't have apps, and things really weren't as commonplace as they are now. So I used Microsoft Word, like Amazon's downloadable Word documents, and just use that. But now I've used Atticus for these, and I was blown away by the results. It's absolutely easy to use and professional looking.
That's what I've heard. So I haven't quite gotten to the process myself of self-publishing. I'm just writing currently on Vella right now. But I've heard that Atticus is great.
Atticus is awesome.
Yeah, so that's definitely one that I'll be looking into once I get there. And then what do you mainly kind of write on? What's your like platform? Do you have like a specific one, like Word or Scrivener?
I used to use Word, but now I'm a Google Docs fan, and that's because I can write from my phone. I'm sure there's other apps and websites out there. I've seen other writers mention them, but right now Google Docs works great for me. I have no complaints.
I'm so happy to hear that, actually, because that's my main form of writing as well, because of the convenience of it, because I do a lot of, especially this summer, I probably have only written like 1 chapter fully on my computer because I'm constantly on the go with the kids and stuff. So Google Docs is so great. I am kind of looking for something a little bit maybe more where it's kind of like, the problem is the formatting isn't the best. You kind of got to go in and do that all later on, but it is so convenient.
I might be a little old school, but I just don't like the idea of having my work on somebody else's website. I feel like Google Docs is attached to my email addresses, and those feel a little more secure for some reason, but I might just be old school.
I know. No, I understand that too, because I was actually just going over this with somebody else about like, I think it was Scrivener specifically. That was one that I've been really looking at, but it's one of those where you technically don't, you kind of just pay like monthly, I believe. And so you don't really own it. It's just more of like you're using their platform. So then it makes you think like, how secure is that? Right. So I get it. So I think we'll let's go ahead and go into your book. I am currently 4 chapters in, and to be honest, I was super hooked. One, just from the synopsis, which is, she's going to go ahead and read that for us. I think that very end of your synopsis is just catching, so catching. And then that very intro chapter was wholesome, and then it just hits you. And so it's so good. So I'm very slow reading right now, but I am loving it, and I will be definitely finishing your book. So
I'm so glad to hear that. So
yeah.
the synopsis, you want me to read the synopsis?
Yeah.
Falling in love with his bounty hunter was never part of the plan. After the Cobalt Empire spent decades suppressing Pyran culture, Emperor Cinnabar designed the walled Pyran sector with only one purpose: extermination. Disrael of Turmoil has little left except his sister, but he won't accept death without a fight. When the state mandates that all Pyrans relocate to the walled sector, Disrael does not hesitate to don a mask and replace the capital flag with one that proclaims Pyran is free. What he didn't count on was a simple act of defiance becoming the symbol of an empire-wide revolution. By the time dawn breaks, a Sable commander renowned for catching renegades is on his trail, and Disrael is driven into the center of the resistance against the state. Decorated Sable Commander Ambrosia is ready for the challenge of pulling Pyran resistors off Turmoil's streets. But the layers of unrest in the capital go deeper than a masked renegade inciting insurrection, locking her in a deadly dance between conviction and duty, comrades and terrorists, one that requires a flawless loyalty to the state to survive. And the unassumingly charming Disrael keeps getting in her way. Disrael and Ambrosia are thrust into each other's paths, as Renegade and Sable, as citizens of the Empire struggling to survive the upheaval. But as their feelings for each other grow, they'll have to choose. One love destined to destroy them both, or the fate of an empire.
Very good. I love it. It's such a good one. It really is such a good hook.
I have to thank the editor for helping me with this blurb.
Oh, good. I was just going to ask that. Do you enjoy synopsis, or is it, yeah?
I enjoy writing them. You know, but you need you need those outside eyes, that second opinion, and somebody else in the business to kind of give you tips. And she really just helped tweak certain parts of it that made it shine.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really good. It's definitely one of the best I've read in a while with the hook and stuff. And I'm a huge synopsis person. Like, I hate to say it, I am a cover person as well, because of course, when you're in the store, that's something that's going to grab your attention. But then of course, flipping over, and I mean, this immediately catches your eye. So that was really, really good. Especially, like you said, it wraps in the whole, it's a dystopian, sci-fi, all that kind of wrapped together. And it definitely captures that feeling.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah. I'm going to actually go ahead. One thing I want to give you like another huge props about is not only is it's a nice big book. We all love a nice big book. But also, she has pictures in here, which is really cool. She's got art in here, and I just wanted to show off a couple of them for those on YouTube to see. They're beautiful and just kind of sprinkled out. So do you have a artist that you work with regularly then who does these, or do you?
Yes, I am the artist.
You are the artist. Okay.
Yes.
That's cool.
So my had bought me a digital drawing tablet because I wanted one about 2 years ago, and I started sketching during the writing process. I was doing pencil on scrap paper just to kind of get the scenes out of my head as I was writing. Yeah. And I had a vision to put them throughout the book, so I selected several scenes and just did them up on my digital drawing tablet.
That is so cool. That's amazing. Like, that's something, I am not creative in that way. My husband is. But so I just am mind blown by that. That is so cool. And is this something you often do with your other books?
No. This is something I've only done for these so far, but I hope to continue it for the rest of the series.
Yeah. And how many books are going to be in this total? Do you know yet?
I'm not for sure, because the one I'm working on now, I know it's going to be longer than one book. It's so much to unpack. It's going to have to be either another duology or a trilogy. And okay. Chronologically, it's before Birthright of Scars.
Gotcha. Okay.
For things that happen after Birthright of Scars.
Okay, so basically, this specific, the rising, and then the next one is choosing. Those two are just kind of like a duology. Is that how it is? But then there's a bunch of stories that are going to bounce from there.
Right, with side characters and these characters.
Perfect. I love that. That's something I feel like we bring this up, or I bring this up all the time on the podcast. But JLA, she's so good at doing that, Jennifer Armentrout, where she does a series, but then she bounces off and makes another really good. I think that is such a good way to do it. And I'm sure for you, you're so connected to these worlds and these characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just another way to kind of express.
Yes.
Is that how you feel?
You get to explore the world from the eyes of maybe side characters and just show things that you wouldn't have been able to show through the first characters you worked with. Things like that. It's just deeper exploration.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it also is a fun way to kind of, so do you do a lot of like world building or prepping before you get into a series?
Oh, it's hard to say like what I always do because I feel like every project I start is so different from the last.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't write in order, but then sometimes I write in order, and then sometimes I
Yeah.
don't. So this one, the world building kind of came as I wrote.
Okay.
Kind of just nuggets dropped here and there, like as you need it. This little revelation happens. You're like, oh, they actually have this bit of technology, or oh, this is this cultural custom.
Right.
People, and it just comes as I write.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally understand that because as much of I am not like a plotter, but I could be somewhere, I'm not 100% a pantser either. So somewhere in between, because when a story hits me, because of the fact that it's a whole new world, whichever, genre I'm writing, whether it's the sci-fi or the fantasy, I always have to have, like you said, a little drop of nuggets and stuff like that. I have to have that kind of just to get me going, like just to have like what's the magic like and what's the initial land with, is it like realms or kingdoms, is there castles, that kind of stuff. I'll have to have a little bit of that, but I get kind of dropping things in as you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so for this one, did your characters really form? Did you have them real solid first?
I would say it changed a lot from the first draft. It was loosely inspired by Tron Uprising, so Disrell and Brandt are loosely inspired off of Beck and Page.
Yeah.
And when I wrote that first draft, I was kind of really keeping the personalities of these like younger, like maybe older teen, like 17, 18, college age kids with those personalities. And then they, by the second and third draft, morphed into more complex characters.
Gotcha.
That the TV show just couldn't produce.
Which makes sense because as you're writing, because with each draft and each revision, your thought process and your writing and you're really getting to know these characters more. Yeah. So then it's going to evolve and it's going to shift.
It's really a relationship with the characters. Like the amount of thought hours you spend creating a book, you're not actually writing. You're just thinking about it, dwelling with the characters, living in their heads 24/7. And you form a bond with those characters and get to know them on a personal level. So yeah, that's where a lot of the real work is.
It is. And that's why we always like we're talking about people. Obviously, they're not physically real, but they are real to us. They really are. They're in our heads. They're people. They not necessarily talk to us, but they kind of do. They show us what who they are, know? Yeah. I find that I think as a creative person, of course, I can only speak for myself, but I find that as probably the funnest part is the characters and the world coming alive.
Yes.
Yeah. And so with this, so you also drew them. So did you have it really heavily already in your head what you wanted them to look like too?
Yeah, I had some pretty sharp images from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And there were some minor adjustments. Like it's hard to describe how minor adjustments to human's face come about, but each face is so unique that these subtleties. They're very similar to how I originally pictured them, though.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love that. Because so I am not an artist in any form of that way, but I do, again, I'm going to sound so silly, but I love Sims. And this last game has gotten so really almost like real looking, just like AI and all that, So I often will put my characters in form on Sims just so I can they can come alive better in my head,
That's
because
awesome. I never
there's just
that. Awesome, though.
It's my own way of being an artist, I suppose, and stuff. Yeah, so for this last book that I wrote, there's 6 characters that I really was like, it wasn't that I was having a hard time, but they're kind of like mutants in a way. And so what's nice is with Sims, you can have that like red skin or like different eye colors and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of needed to put them together for that sense. Yeah.
I can see authors doing that with games too. Like I've started a new game, and it's a medieval fantasy style game, and it inspires me to write that type of medieval fantasy. Yeah. Some of the characters in the game, so it's totally.
Oh yeah, I think there is a connection between. I think games can definitely be helpful, and like you said, with the medieval, as you're just walking around and going through these different sections of the game, there could be something that, say, like writer's block is hitting you. All of a sudden, it could open your mind, and be like, that's what I'm missing. It's
imaginative play, and that's what writing ends up needing. You need that imaginative play to write.
Right. Agreed. And once again, I got off topic. I always do that. Sorry. But so book 1, I am reading, like I said, I think I'm on chapter 4, and I am really loving both of your characters so far. And especially like the Disrael. Is that how you say it?
Disrael.
Okay. Even as a child, I was like, oh, he's gonna come back. He's gonna be, like hardcore, and he's gonna be just that type of character you want to root for, So that's very good. And who came first? Was it just both of them together, or
originally it was just Disrael's point of view?
Okay.
And then I added in Ambrosia's second. I was familiar with dual point of view, but that wasn't my goal. It was really just about Disrael being the hero. He's the renegade, and so I wrote his side of the story first. And when her perspective came in, it changed everything, because we got to see the world from the Cobalt side of things. Their politics, their military, their aristocracy. All those things come from Ambrosia's point of view, because that's what she's neck deep in.
It does build, obviously I haven't gotten too far, but it does build the two. I can see it already, kind of where it'll be the kind of the turmoil, where obviously there's a connection, but it's also there's duties and there's promises and there's stuff like that. So multi-point of view is really, I've always written in multi-point of view. I think it's just the way my brain works. It's easier for me. But I also just find it is a good way to tell a story. It's a really fun and different way to tell a story.
Right. Without her, Disrael wouldn't face the villain till the end. And so when you're with her, you actually get to interact with the villain from her perspective as well. And my favorite thing about the dual point of view with this book is that you get to experience the story from behind the Renegade's mask and from the outside of it looking in.
Yeah. That is really cool.
Yes.
So do you plan on then doing multi-point of view from here on out, or just as your characters kind of tell you?
It depends on the story, really, but the expansion that I'm working on now deals with the first Tourmaline Renegade story and how he met his wife. And so it's also dual point of view, because that makes that particular story more interesting. You get to see the world from the eyes of the first Tourmaline Renegade, and he's like a morally gray, conflicted character. And then you get to see the world through the eyes of the prisoner that captures his heart. And she's seeing him as a rotten monster, the whole,
Okay.
I like having both those perspectives because, especially with romance, you want both sides of the story for enemies to lovers.
Yeah, it is. And that's one thing, as much as and as deep as yours is sci-fi world building and all the political stuff and everything, the main kind of hook is the romance, the two opposites coming together, basically.
Yeah, technically the romance is considered a subplot with these, but okay. I feel like you can't extract it from the plot, because if you did, it would be a totally different story.
Yeah, yeah.
It's 50-50 for me. 50% romance, 50% political intrigue and plot and, conflict.
Yeah. I get that. I totally get that too, because there's a lot of times just with see the romance aspect, but I always remind them it's way deeper. There is romance and there is a big connection, but it's dark fantasy or whichever one I'm talking about, and stuff. So I agree that there is a 50-50 with most of these kind of things, which is why I like that the terms of fantasy romance almost being its own genre now, instead of having it like, oh, it's fantasy with a little romance, I like that they're blending kind of.
I do too.
Yeah. So you said you're working on another book, a third book? Yep. And is that one, so that's the one that's for before?
Yes. Yeah. Chronologically, it follows the first Tourmaline Renegade and kind of shows you how this genocide might not have happened if he had done things differently. Gotcha. You could read it either order. You could read this duology first, or you could read the other one first. They'll kind of be standalones in their own right, but connected.
Okay, I like that. That's really a good way to do it too, because a lot of people, they don't really know. A lot of them, even if, as much as we would say, like, read them in this order, I feel like most people are just like, oh, this book sounds really good. And do you have a date for when you plan on having that one out, or?
I wish I could say yes, but no, how long it took me to get to, like, this was one book. This used to be one book, and because of the size, it's chunky.
Right.
And so I'm about at 50,000 words with what I have now, and it's just getting started in the sense that the characters have had 3 meet cutes, and they're still not clicking, but they're not supposed to. Like, we don't want them to click. Right. They're supposed to hate each other for a while. It's a weird dynamic that I want to handle. It's a death camp commandant and his prisoner, and so anytime you get that power imbalance, I don't want it to be too weird. I want it to feel natural, and so I'm going to take my time with it and allow him to have time to help her people and change and grow as a person before they click, and so they might not even fall in love till the second book.
That's perfect. A slow burn, kind of, especially when it comes to an enemies to lover or someone who's got a lot of trauma and stuff like that. You don't want it to jump in. You want it to, like you said, natural. I agree. You're doing it very right.
It's tricky. I'm scared.
Well, again, that's what editors are for, and beta readers too. They'll help you out and tell you how it's good. Yeah. So how many drafts do you usually do before you really feel kind of solid and secure?
I think I did like at least 7 different drafts with this. I poured through it like 12 times.
Yeah.
It's hard to, I can't even remember, but I go through a lot, and I really polish and edit my own work before I even give it to beta readers.
Yeah. And that's really, it is. I read a quote the other day, or like a month ago, that said something about when an author, even though they've only read like and stuff that they're writing.
I'm sorry, I missed part of your question.
No, that's okay. I was just saying that I have read before where someone was saying that even though an author maybe only read 10 books this year, they read their own story at least 100 times.
That is correct. Correct.
Yeah. So it's almost like I'm kind of in that headspace right now where I feel like yesterday, I should have been reading your book. I should have been writing, but I could just not get over these last few chapters that I pumped out. And I had to keep reading them to make sure they were okay.
Oh yeah, like I obsess over my own work. And so if I hit a spot where I feel like I'm in a rough patch, I actually tend to attack it more, and I'll just read and reread and read and go back and check earlier what things that happened, come back to that segment of dialogue that's giving me problems, and just try to bust through it and make sure it makes sense. And so you can sit for 2 hours and reread a section if you're dedicated.
Oh, for sure. I know. Actually, that was my problem. So I'm 35 now. I've been really, really trying to publish and stuff since about 28, 29. But for probably 3, 4 of those years, I had a really hard time of just not being able to forward write and being stuck in revision before even finishing a draft, and stuff. Where I really had to reteach myself to just be like, quit looking at it. That's what the editing process is for. Get the story out.
Yes, I've definitely tried applying that in my current manuscript. If I hit a roadblock, sometimes I'll learn back away or just keep writing, and you can come back and fix it later.
Yeah. I think also finally me jumping into Vella like I did, which is it makes you write in serial form. So you have to push it in that sense. But it also makes me also realize like down the road, even though I've edited these chapters and read them, I still, to get them all into full book form when I want it to, I'm going to have to go back and reread and edit it completely again.
Yes.
And so I have a couple extra. Oh, one thing I wanted to talk about too is the marketing. How do you feel about marketing? Is it something you enjoy, or is it something not so much?
It's something I'm not always confident I'm doing correctly. Even though I've studied marketing from the business side of things, not from the bookish side of marketing, but just from having an online business. It's not uncomfortable. I don't mind making videos of myself talking about my book or anything like that. The consistency is hard.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes you put in so much time and you don't see the results right away. So it's like I could be writing, or I could be spending several hours making reels and things like that. So
I agree. There is it is fun. So for me personally, I do find it fun to interact with people and try and have those connections and stuff. But I 100% agree that these reels, it was almost a little bit easier when it was just snap a photo and talk a little bit, The reels, even when they're the most simplest, silliest thing, still take a good 20 minutes to edit.
Just the upload time sometimes. If your Wi-Fi is spotty, you'll be sitting there trying to upload for an hour.
I know. Well, and then Reels has gotten this new thing where they'll cut you'll think it's all looks wonderful. Yes. And then they cut half of your words out. Like the most important, it's always the most important words too. Always. Yeah. So then you're just like, there's so many times where I'm
Yeah, when it comes to things like that, I really want to put more energy into the in-person sales and attending author events, because that's where I feel like I have my biggest success connecting with readers and selling books. And so I kind of keep an online presence just for fun and just to have people know where I'm at in the writing process. And if I get inspired to do a funny reel, then I'll do that. But right now, most of my energy is wanting to go towards the in-person events because they are an absolute blast.
Good. I love that you're having a good experience with that. So how often do you do in-person ones?
I've only done 2 so far, and I have 2 more lined up for the fall. But
nice.
next year I should have more because I missed a few this year. I just wasn't prepared, just getting started, had some other events that conflicted with, dates and things. But next year I hope to do at least 6.
That's awesome. Do you want to maybe talk about the ones that are coming up in the fall?
Sure. So I've got the Chocolate Town Book Fest, which is in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It's at the Hershey Public Library. And really looking forward to that because it's an indoor event, or both of them are actually, and anticipate a lot of readers. And then I'm also made it into the Wright Women's Book Fest in Bowie, Maryland, which is at a hotel ballroom. And that's a really big event that I've heard a lot of great things about. So I'm really looking forward to being there too.
That is really cool. And so for those who watch this and want to get more involved in events and stuff like that, do you just search them on like your state sites, or do you have like a bookish one that you kind of follow, or how do you kind of find them?
I did some web searching, author events in Pennsylvania, and then try like other areas like Maryland, DC, things like that. But there is, for those in my particular area, there is a writer couple called Pershel Press, and they have their own website where they've compiled all of these events for the Northeast.
Oh,
area.
cool.
And so they were a huge help in me locating some of these events as well. And just word of mouth, you attend one event and authors are buzzing about other places they've been. So just meeting other authors really opens you up to those other opportunities.
Yeah, that's definitely, I feel like I love the author community so much.
Oh yeah.
They are so helpful and so like welcoming, and everybody just wants to we know how hard it is to write a book. Mm-hmm. We know also how much it means to, in our hearts and stuff. So it's like you want to see everyone. That's me 100%. I want to see everybody succeed and just live the dream, right?
Like, I'm happy to tell another author about an event in my local area, local authors. It's not competition. Like, I'm not going to sell as many books because they have their books there. They have different books than me. Their book isn't my book, so it's not competition. It's actually helpful to draw more readers when you've got more authors at an event.
Well, and I bet the readers too, if they see you guys all interacting and talking, again, if you wanted to throw social media in on that, if you guys did an event and posted that, look at, we're all going to be here.
Yes.
How many people are going to hit each one of you,
You're each telling your unique followers and subscribers, so it just draws more people. So
yeah,
right. It floats all the boats.
Yeah, it's so true. I love that. There's no reason that, the community is just so great. I love it. I've gotten nothing but support, and it sounds like you as well. So, and it helps you. Has it built your confidence as well, and stuff?
Absolutely. Like, I'm a really shy person when it comes to, I'm not an extrovert. And so my first bookish event was at a greenhouse, which is an excellent place for introverts.
Cool.
Plants and cats everywhere.
Very serene and calm.
But the author that had her table next to me was very open, and she just shared what she knew. And, I was able to chat and smile and kind of stay upbeat to draw customers to our tables. And fed off each other's energy.
So great. I love that. Because I am definitely extroverted in the sense of like I feel like most people who I talk a lot and I'm very, bubbly and like that kind of stuff. But as an adult, I've gotten very much more introverted and stuff, and like homebody, that kind of thing. So it is really nice to kind of have those different connections and feed off of each other's energy. And I'm so glad to hear that for you, that all that's going well, because that definitely makes me nervous. We like to go to like Comic-Cons and different things like that, and I see these people with their books and everything, and I'm just like, someday I want to do that too.
Yes, I would love to hit a Comic-Con, even though it would wear me out so bad. But just for the chance to have that many people pass by my table, it would be awesome.
Right. And just the atmosphere just always seems so fun. And everyone's just, again, another place where everybody just is happy to kind of be there and support. So it is a good environment. Hopefully you'll be there someday soon.
Someday.
Maybe we'll be there together someday.
That would be exciting.
So I guess another question I could jump into, do you have some like great tips for anyone that is looking to self-publish and that kind of what maybe a do or a don't kind of a thing?
I don't want to deal in absolutes because I want to encourage newer writers that might not have the finances to go all the way with their book. But I feel like, based on my experience, when I was 19, I didn't have the support group. I didn't really have a whole lot of, I was kind of sheltered, and so I didn't have connections, and I didn't have finances to self-publish properly. So I did what I see a lot of indies do, and that's I did my own cover, I did my own blurb, I didn't have an editor, I was 19, right? So I know that a lot of people are hard up for cash and they just want to get their book out in the world. There's really nothing wrong with that because that can help fund a future book. I don't want to discourage anybody completely, but my best advice is if you have the money or if any way possible, do it right. Hire an editor, hire a great cover designer, have somebody help you with your blurb because that pays off more in the end than publishing it and hoping to make money off of it.
Well, and it probably also, too, gives you more time with the creative aspect over the story and the characters inside, where then if you have others helping you on the external stuff, then that probably does help so much.
I think confidence as well. I think it builds the author's own confidence in their work because you've had other eyes on it. And when people see that, they're more willing, they say, this person believes in their product. I'm more willing to buy that book.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of like where I am right now, which is why I jumped in the Vella kind of part, because the money is real, it is a big process. It is, you could just dump a bunch of money and what if it didn't do very well? So Vella is helping me kind of save, for cover artists. Like I've had just recently, I've had a lot of people trying to, for art and stuff like that, and for character art and hitting me up. And I'm like, I am writing your name down. I'm keeping you in mind because I do want all of that eventually, but not quite yet,
Right.
Because I want to do it right as well. Like right now for my Vella stories, I do have a friend that is helping edit some of it as well. But for most of it, and then I do have alpha readers on my one story, my dark fantasy. But for most of it, it is, it's hard. I know I'm not doing everything correctly.
Yes.
So looking for all the advice, as well as I know there are so many people looking for that as well. And so I appreciate those tips. I appreciate that because sometimes also, I'm like, I can do it all. I got this, no problem. But the truth is you need it. You do need a group. You need a team.
You need a team of some sort. I'm not dogging anyone that wants to do their own cover because some authors are great cover designers.
Yeah.
It's
well,
just,
like, yeah. Like, well, look at you with
everything.
Yeah, it is. Because you with your art, that probably wouldn't have happened if you were trying to do everything else, yourself.
I tried to do my own cover. I failed miserably like 20 different times. And then I said, enough of this. I'm hiring someone.
Yeah, I get that. Just for my Vella, like I've been really good with like Canva and other little things like that. But with Vella, it's just a square. It's like a Canva photo, and like graphics and stuff. And I can't imagine going in and doing the entire, I would mess up the binding or do something wrong.
Yes, because Vella's digital content. It's like a digital subscription.
Yeah. So it's only, all it is like I said, just a little square graphic that you kind of put. And those I find fun. You don't even have to put the title on those for Vella. It's just more about a picture that can sum up
like a
your
profile
story.
icon for your book.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it is. So I can handle that, but I will definitely, my plan is to hire a cover artist once I get to that point. So that's where the Vela is coming in. Yeah, for me. And then let's see. I know I have a couple other things. So we could go further in also on the marketing and stuff, because that's such a huge, subject. What are your favorite platforms? Do you only do Instagram?
Instagram's been my main focus for the past 2 years. I've considered YouTube, but I'm not that comfortable in front of a camera. I feel like Twitter it's all text, and I just don't feel like I would fit in on Twitter. And I'm not aware.
Sorry.
I'm not really active on Facebook anymore, so
yeah.
I know Facebook and Instagram are kind of connected, but Instagram's been a lot of fun, and I'm just really happy there.
Yeah, I agree. Instagram will always be my favorite. Just recently, I took the dive into TikTok. Otherwise, I had never done anything. I didn't even have the app or anything like that. Just recently, but all I do is if I've posted a reel to Instagram, I do the same thing. So I'm not overly making more work for myself.
Same.
TikTok. So you are on TikTok as well?
Dabbled in TikTok. I'm not consistent with my posting, but if I have something really good on Instagram, I'll share it to TikTok too.
Yeah. That's kind of where I am as well. And I do find it harder, maybe because I'm later in the game. I don't know if it'll ever be a platform that I'll look too much into or like really be like, look into the algorithm, because I feel like there's just so many videos on that it's like you're just either going to be seen or you're not.
Right.
And then the other one, I'm actually liking it. So you brought up Twitter a little bit. So I've never done Twitter ever, but I did join the new Threads, even though I said I wouldn't in the beginning, but I was like, okay, I guess I will try this out.
But it doesn't affect me in yet.
Yeah. I feel like because that one's so new, that's kind of why I decided, was because you know what? It's all new. Why not jump in it in the beginning and see if you like it, see if you can connect with a community. And if not, then it's not really so bad. And it really is. It reminds me of like old school Facebook, really, because all you do is like maybe say a line or two. I share more because it is so new. I share my links a little bit more on there because I don't want to just bombard everybody on Instagram with because I have made friends and connections and all that. So I don't want to be like, read my book. But on Threads, I have done that a little bit more. And I think it has kind of helped. I've been seeing numbers going up. So
good.
I don't know. Maybe. But it could be worth a shot for anyone who is out there.
The weird thing for me is when your most consistent followers are actually not your target market, but they love following you. And so when you market your book, it feels a little weird because they're not going to read it, but they're your dedicated followers.
I know, that's the thing. Well, because there is that's what I love about also Instagram. And it might feel the same for you, because you feel genuine community, you feel genuine friendship almost, and stuff like that. And I know I've made genuine friends over Bookstagram. So it is kind of harder though, because I started off as just a bookish person. And I like my first one does talk about how I'm a writer, but I didn't really start until about a year ago, really marketing that I'm finally doing it, and stuff like that. So it feels funny to just be like, okay, now friends, read my book. Everybody, you know what I mean? It feels funny. It just feels weird.
But that's how a lot of authors have done really well. Like on YouTube, they've had a following and they write a book that appeals to their following. And they've already got that fan base built up from whatever else they were doing on YouTube or TikTok. So yeah, it's actually a really good thing. I think your dedicated followers, even if they're just fellow readers, they're like, oh, this Bookstagrammer, this blogger now has a book of her own. They are more likely to read your book.
Yeah, well, and at least just even like build the confidence for you, because even if they don't read it, there's so many who support you, who are like, that is so great, each little step.
Even, yes.
Yeah, so that alone is just a huge, help and stuff for authors, is the support, really. And I find that has been great with social media. And then, so one more thing. So we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I feel like I always have to ask every author. We talked a little bit about world building and all that, but would you consider yourself a pantser, a plotter, or somewhere in between?
I'm definitely somewhere in between. But I did pants this book.
Okay.
I did pants this one, but I find that when I get story ideas or the next one I'm writing, I've got a dump document. It's not a complete.
I love it.
But it's a dump document where all the puzzle pieces go in random order. And then I have to go through that slush and pull out these pieces and find where to put them.
Yeah.
It's a mediocre outline of some sort.
Do you find yourself like waking up in the middle of the night and that's what you go to as your little dump file to kind of be like, here's my quick idea that just hit me?
Yes, I'm often silencing people. They're talking to me and an idea comes. I'm like, wait, hold that thought. I've got to get it out.
I do too. And I always joke too. I've actually got a friend who's been on the podcast before that I always joke. I'm like, if I'm having a brain fart or a block, I'm like, I'm going to go take a really long shower because I do my best thinking just in the shower. And then I come out and I'm always like, nobody talk to me because I need to write in my notes quick.
Yes.
So my little dump folder is on my phone. And it's just literally just notes. I'll have a little like head title thing that says, War of Hearts and Shadows thoughts, and then it's just a bunch of whatever. Nothing's in order.
Nothing's in order. Things are highlighted by importance and all that. Yes.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing. I'll like italic something just to be like, okay, this is really important, But then I do use old school. I do love something about physically writing. So if something is really, really important, then I have, or if I start a new idea. So X, and then I'll put like characters, world plotting, and so on.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not the same way, but it's more of a privacy issue. I feel like if I write in an actual notebook, somebody can flip through it and make judgments about the plot, and I have no way to, prove that to defend it. It's like,
I get that.
It's pretty graphic what's going to happen there, but it serves a purpose for the story. So.
Oh yeah, I understand that too, because I've got kids and I'll often get sidetracked, leave it open, not thinking about it, just going and taking care of whatever it was. And there was one time specifically, my 12-year-old was like, Mom, like, that's not for you.
Yeah. Writers get a bad rap for being, murderous and things. Right. It's like the dark stuff kind of comes out sometimes on the paper too, and it's uncomfortable.
It does. Well, and like when it's just, I guess for me, I can't speak for everyone, but when the notes are forming, it's always like the worst words, the most explicit stuff, because I'm just trying to get the point quickly across,
Yes. Yeah.
So it would be, shocking to see and stuff. But I am less likely, just like I'm a horrible email person, I am less likely to open if I put all my notes on my phone, I'm going to get sidetracked or something, like I'll end up scrolling through Instagram. So that's why I do physical form. It's for my own version to not get sidetracked, when I'm just really in that, to remember, what did this person look like? Where were they from? That kind of stuff. Because that's about as extent as I get for building,
Mm-hmm.
And so One last thing I wanted to kind of really go over was, so do you work besides write? Is that something that or is writing your 100% what you do?
It's a little complicated. I'm self-employed, but the self-employment part hasn't been going well since the COVID years.
Yeah.
I've seen such a decrease in sales that I have a lot more free time, and I have been thinking about taking up a 9-to-5 kind of job. But for right now, writing is I would say 100%. I don't always spend all day writing, but I have all the time in the world to sit and write all day if I wanted to.
Okay, I love that. I mean, I love that because I feel like we're similar in that kind of, like, I'm in a transitional kind of period where I do daycare and stuff, but since COVID hit, I have been trying to really, I would love to just make writing my 9-to-5, but I've been dabbling in little things to kind of, like, I did Etsy for a little while. It was great in the beginning, and then I felt like I was focused on that instead of writing and stuff. So I've just I like to kind of like, I know that question can be kind of personal too, so I apologize about that. But I like to kind of see where everyone's kind of at in the process, and and if they have a regular 9-to-5, how do you balance it?
Exactly. That's like part-time works better. I feel like I need the outside inspiration to write better, and you tend to value your writing time more if it's not just all day long. At the same time, I like to have a kind of job that allows me my imagination to run. If I have to really focus and take care of a customer and like be one-on-one, that's very draining, and so then I won't have the energy to write. So I want to be selective about the kind of choice I make as far as something else to do with my time.
Right. I get that a lot because, like I said, I am extroverted, but because as an adult I've turned more homebody-ish and stuff, it is kind of draining to just do that all day and stuff. And I love children. I've been watching children my whole life. I have 3 of my own. Have a lot of structure. You have to have a lot of you're creative in the sense of with children. So then when I have to go into the deep dark dive of my stories or whatever, I'm like, I can't really do that when I'm watching the kids and stuff.
Yes. Especially that writer's flow, you need that uninterrupted focus to just kind of dream while you're awake and not be distracted.
Right. Well, and that's why summer has been, it's been all right, but it is, I mean, then you're talking true, I'm 9-to-5 and then some. So I do my poor children, they're great. They're a little older. They're 12, 10, and 8. So I can be like, hey, find something to do. It's quiet time. Mom's got to go write for an hour, that kind of stuff. But it is very scheduled instead of when an idea hits, I can just go write. It gets a little bit better when school starts. So do you have kind of a schedule? You said you just like to have the freedom of it a little bit. Do you have a schedule or a certain time of day that you write a little bit more?
I am a morning person, so I do like writing in the morning, but sitting early in the morning kind of prevents me from being active later in the day. Yeah. So I do find it's better if I start my day with a workout and then write midday. That can happen sometimes. I try to avoid writing in the evening because I'm an eyelash puller, and when I get tired and I don't want to stare at a screen, I start playing with my eyelashes. So these books, I did a lot of evening writing, but in the next manuscript, I'm doing a lot more morning and midday and avoiding the evening to kind of break bad habits and, just get less time in the evening kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's we started this conversation off with growth, and that's a kind of in a way of growth. Like, I do better at these times.
Yes.
So it works if I have to do it this way, but I prefer that.
I'm also learning to just take breaks and be okay with that. I might write for an hour on the porch and then take a couple hours break, do something else, come back and write later.
Yeah. It makes it so that burnout doesn't happen.
Yes.
Yeah. Because that's why, so I've talked about this before on the podcast, but for me, the biggest thing is 30-minute sprints. You know, I love to just sit down, get it out. I can get a good 600 to 800 words out in a sprint. And it's also taught me then in that way, I only have 30 minutes. So get out this story, get out this scene, and then come back to it. And usually what I find is if I give myself a quick 30 minutes, then I think about it all day and I want to write. So then when I do come back to it, then I can sit for an hour and finish it. And
yes, you're motivated. Your mind's just ready to go.
Exactly. So it is about all finding your own kind of balance and your own kind of way, so burnout doesn't happen, and so that it is exciting still, because that will always be the thing. Writing is so exciting.
Yes, it's an adventure. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Right, exactly. I know. See, that's the fun part about being a pantser, is because you're even just like, whoa, that went so well. That I did not see that coming.
I don't know. I guess I'm always eager to have discussions with other authors about the struggles they face as far as backlash for their works, criticisms, things like that. Because I was told growing up, you don't take criticism easily. And so writing has really taught me, and also being in business online, getting the occasional negative review, the customer struggle to make happy at the end, to learn to accept criticism. And yeah, it's just kind of been a learning experience as far as accepting criticism. So far, I've had really high reviews on these.
Yeah.
So far.
I did look through a few of them, and I love because sometimes reviews, I don't want to see like spoilers, but I do like to kind of see them as in get me excited for the book.
Yes.
Like what's coming.
Really happy with the type of reviews I've received, because readers are happy to point out things that they gleaned from the books, how they benefited. Like those are my favorite, when they talk about how they benefited, the nuggets they found, the things they enjoyed.
Right.
That's been the biggest reward as a writer.
Yeah, so I have not yet. So on Bella, you can get reviews as well, but I think there's still some things I'm not quite 100% on yet. But I think it's only when you complete the book can people write the reviews. So I'm not quite there yet. But I can only see one. I'm sure that first negative review, it just hurts. It does.
Especially if you know that the person, like, they weren't the target market for the book, and you're careful, you put in content warnings or trigger warnings. You try to tell people in your social media, this book is for these kind of people and not for these kind of people. And sometimes that reader will bust through those warnings or not see them, and then they get disappointed, and it hurts, because it's like, I didn't want to disappoint that reader, but it happened. I didn't want to offend that reader, but it happened,
Right. Well, because that's the thing, you do a very good job, and even that is very well written. It's not like you just slab a bunch of warnings on, like some books do, like a list. You talk about it and stuff in a very well written way, right in the beginning, what the warnings and stuff like that are. And I understand people are going to get offended. It happens. I write one of my stories is a really dirty book, and so I am just waiting for that moment when someone is, and I'm like, you know what? I think it'll be easier though for that book, just because it's like, I get it. You have your feelings, your opinions and stuff, but I have my own for why I wrote this book, and stuff. And
you feel like if you've been honest, a disappointed reader had to kind of overlook something to get to that point and be offended.
Yeah.
Kind of shows that the book is steamy or something.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's right. I mean, it's right from the get-go. I kind of, in this book, I let people know, and stuff like that. It's one that doesn't wait long, and there's a reason and stuff like that. But it's also mafia-based, so then there's darker themes for that alone. So I feel like just by reading the synopsis of that book, you have to know what you're getting into. Right. But I also know that some people don't read synopsis. They're just going to jump in and go from there.
That's something else I wanted to say. I actually love going into books blind once in a while. Like, I'm a mood reader, but there's something really thrilling about going in blind, not seeing the cover or only seeing the cover, not reading the blurb. Because I feel like if I read the blurb or I read too much into the tropes, I can predict what's going to happen. And I'm not as surprised by things. And I love the thrill of not knowing what happens next.
Yeah, I do that once in a while as well. And actually, I don't review books as often as I used to. But when I do review a book, a lot of times now, it's one, an indie author. So I want to give them that review. And two, it's because I went in blind.
Mm-hmm.
Of word or one little thing, does it actually, obviously it probably hurts at first, but does it just make you want to write more, like learn from what that, either learn from what that person says or just make you even more be like, but everybody else loved this part, I want to do it more.
I missed the first part of your question, but I think I know what you said. Yeah, like I can learn to take a bad review, and I'm happy if other readers didn't complain about a certain thing or found value in it, because that just tells me it was that person's perspective that caused them to take offense. I know that the issue's not with the scene itself.
Yeah, right. It's just more of a personal, and I've always felt that way anyways about reviews. They are a personal opinion. They're someone's thoughts, they're somebody's feelings and stuff. And so in a sense of the way, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you kind of have to take it as a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
And just, read it or don't read it. Because I know there's authors out there who don't look at the reviews whatsoever. I think eventually I'm going to have to get there, because otherwise I could be the type of person that just gets too involved in that.
For me, it's like if somebody exposes something in the reviews, I've got family, I don't want to see those things. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like if somebody's like exposing this content, I'm going to have family criticize me for having that content in my book, knowing the context without having read it themselves. And it's just like, oh, she wrote that. I can't believe she wrote that thing.
Right. I know. It's funny how much our families and stuff like that can kind of get in our heads in those sense of ways, because I think for a while that's why I pushed writing off anyways, because I didn't want to offend even though I love my family and they're great support, but I don't want to offend. That book is, especially that one, and I grew up in a Catholic school for 9 years,
I missed what you said last. I heard you grew up in a Catholic school, and that's when it froze.
Oh, yeah. So I grew up, in a Catholic school for 9 years. And so for me, if I write anything semi-dirty or anything like that, it seems like I'm doing something wrong, when I know it's not. And I also know, like, when it comes to my family too, especially like my mom and my dad, they can't be surprised. Anyone who really knows me, they're like, oh, no. Yeah, of course she writes like that.
Yeah, it was a shock for a lot of people. These books got labeled dark sci-fi, dark fantasy by another podcast host, by my editor and things. And I've never read dark fiction before. Yeah. I was surprised. It's like, that's what came out of me. I couldn't really help that.
Right. But then there's something, so also the dark, that again, so I usually have a very bubbly, positive outlook on everything. So I think, if anything, it's not really the steam that could shock my family. It will be the maybe gore, maybe the real angstiness of the characters and stuff like that. But in a way, don't you think that's also a little bit of healing too? And like,
I actually had one of my reviewers talk about how healing this book was for her. The darkness actually helped her, because she was going through a really dark time in her life, and she saw that it could be overcome and everything. So yeah, but I've also just been giving a lot of thought to, what does it mean about our psyche that we're kind of afraid of someone when we realize that, they're capable of writing something, the darker material or the more gory material. I just I want to explore that in the next few months. What does it
I mean, well, and that's what it is, because even so there's one scene that I wrote, I'll never forget. I think it was the first scene my husband ever wrote or read of mine. I've never published it anywhere, eventually maybe someday. But what it is this siren lady who kind of like brings someone in, and then in the end she's trying to stay a secret, and she snaps the neck. And that was the shocking part to my husband, was like, whoa. Well, sirens aren't, one, you have to look at her journey and why she's doing this, I think also it is fun. Like you were saying, you want to dive more into that psyche and stuff like that. I think it's really fun, kind of like, how would somebody, it's almost like getting to know your characters and stuff. How would somebody who grew up this way react to a situation like that?
Yes. Yeah, writers get to wear all the shoes.
Yeah. Dive into all the different kinds of feelings and personality, maybe feelings you didn't even know you had.
Right.
Yeah. Or could have. Yeah. But that's also, do you get emotional when you're writing?
Yes, I have cried a lot during my writing processes.
Yeah. And I think that's very natural because, one, we get to know the characters. So when they go through hardships, it's heartbreaking.
Sometimes it's cathartic. It's the sympathy for the character, and then other times it's a processing of your own emotions. Like something hits you, a memory, a core memory, and just something bubbles to the surface, and you realize you're processing something, and you're just like, I'm writing this scene because of something I experienced.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's maybe a feeling of shame, or just feelings coming to the surface.
Right. No, I 100% agree with that. And that's why a lot of things out of my mouth and stuff when I'm talking to other, like, for example, if people want to start writing darker books, or if they want to start writing spice, I've had so many people hit me up just I've only been sharing my snippets for a few months, but that's obviously reached some people in the sense of like, how do you start that? Like, I want to, but there's shame, or I'm afraid to do that, of what people are going to think. And it's almost like, but if you're writing what's in your heart, that's going to be better for your writing, because it is therapeutic and you're putting your heart and your soul into this, and it's going to come across.
I would also tell them, don't be afraid to write. You don't have to feel like you have to publish everything you write. You might just need to write something for you. And it can be just you in the page, and stash it for years. That's fine.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, that was, I know if Stacy were here, my co-host who's on once in a while, she would have a lot, because that was something she had talked about too, was how it almost took her a few books to really start writing her, feelings and having fun, just being like, I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
I just want to write my stories, and so I lost my train of thought. But yeah, anyways, I like that conversation. That was a good one. Did you have anything else you wanted to say? I feel like I went on a ramble.
No, I think we did well. I really hope people enjoy the characters and don't judge them too hard, because I like characters that make mistakes and are imperfect, flawed, lovable humans.
I really too. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's what makes them real, really, is the flaws, is the learning from the mistakes, and characters real? Is the flaws, the learning from the mistakes, and the growth and all that? And some of them don't grow; they grow in a not so great way.
Downhill growth.
Yeah.
Ungrowth.
Yeah. And again, that's like I said earlier, that's looking into it. How would this person, even if it's not the way how they were raised, if it's what they've been through these last, in this ride of a book, how would they react to this situation now?
Yeah, these are a ride, so.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited to. I will definitely be hitting you up once and even when I get to probably like some crazy chapters, I'll be like, why did you do this to me?
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
One said she threw the book across the room. So good. That's what we're aiming for. Visceral.
Right. Exactly. It is. That is what makes a really great book. It really is. And sometimes people are looking for the opposite. You want to hug the book or whatever, But I do love that. I know you said something about you were shocked that yours were categorized as dark. But do you almost like that now? Do you understand? Because dark doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing.
Right. I understood that from the beginning. It was just kind of, I guess, a surprise. Like I just wasn't aware of it. Because I wasn't a reader of that kind of thing. But I do like it.
Yeah. Do you read it now or what?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, and I do.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think we could probably end it there. And I've had a lot of fun.
It's been great talking to you.
Good. Sometimes I feel like because I can go on these rampages, my mind doesn't want to stop. I can be a little overwhelming sometimes, but I really had fun. And thank you so much for coming on. And I look really forward to finishing your book and then going into book 2. So
I do hope you love it, and I wish you luck on the one you're writing.
Thank you. And I definitely will be following your process and for more books to come. So